Welcome back, everybody, to today's edition of Connecticut Newsmakers. Interesting scenario that's playing out in the southwestern part of the state of Connecticut. It all has to do with airspace. And apparently right now what the FAA is trying to do is to ease the air congestion in the greater New York area. And they'd be sending approximately 150 more planes per day flying over lower Fairfield County. And obviously the folks in the lower Fairfield County will be concerned about this. We want to talk about that with our guest in this segment of the program is Rudy Marconi, who's chairman of the executive committee of the Alliance for Sensible Airspace Planning. That's quite a mouthful, of course.
It is.
Rudy, and he is also the Democratic First Selectman in the town of Ridgefield. So this is something that's really picked up. I know Senator Dodd has been on this also.
Senator Dodd, Senator Lieberman.
Yep. Where do we stand now?
Well, we're in the middle of a legal battle. We've retained counsel out of Chicago, Will McDermott and Emery, Stephen Flom, who has plenty of experience in the aviation courts, and is handling our case for us in the appellate court, hopefully the Second Circuit, where we will ask the courts to send back this airspace redesign to the FAA to consider some issues that we feel were not considered during their 10-year study. Specifically, there are items like the purchase by the New York Port Authority of Stewart Air Base to create a commercial flight area there, aviation.
It's out
around Newburgh.
Newburgh, New York, right.
Right. An airport designed to handle the C-5s, the largest planes, cargo planes in the world, and we feel that that should be taken into consideration, should have been taken into consideration with respect to the alleviation of congestion in the New York metropolitan area. Right. But this plan isn't just for New York. It's a New York, Philadelphia issue. Newark, and Philadelphia. And just yesterday, Sturgill's appointment as the administrator of the FAA was put on hold by Menendez and Lautenberg out of New Jersey, for the specific reason is they do not like the redesign plan. They've studied it, they've looked at it, they feel the process has been flawed. They feel that there are safety concerns, and there are many, many concerns, noise, and that the citizens in the state of New Jersey have not been taken into consideration because of the negative impact on the communities.
How about in terms of what the FAA is saying here, that they have to get some of these planes out away from the city? Well, are they correct on that?
Well, they have been told, straighten this out, no question. But what's ironic is during the holiday season, when we have the highest rush of air traffic, this past year, what they did during the Thanksgiving Christmas holiday season was to alleviate some of the air restrictions out over the water. That seemed to help address some of the delays. Why can't they do that on a more permanent basis? Take a look at some of the restricted airspace out over the water. That's something that we want them to look at, that we feel they haven't. And they didn't have public hearings like they say. We at the local level, being an experienced First Selectman from Ridgefield, the purpose of a public hearing is to gather input from the community, to find out what the concerns are, so then you can take those concerns and put it into your ordinance, put it into the decision that you're making. With the FAA, it seems to be more that it's just a checklist on a folder that says, yes, we had the public hearing. The comments, of which I have attended over the years, very, very explicitly laid out the concerns on the part of the communities, but yet nothing was taken into consideration. So what we're doing is we're reaching out as a call to action for the people, not only of southern Fairfield County, but that area comes right up into the Bridgewater area, where Bill Stewart in Bridgewater convinced his executive board to in fact join our cause. So it's almost the entire western part of the state that will be impacted by this, and people need to stand up and pay attention, listen to what's going on, because this is your only shot at it. This is our only opportunity to grab a seat at the table and have an impact on what will affect our quality of life for years to come.
Yeah. In terms of Senators Dodd and Lieberman, what are they saying about this? I mean, are they saying, look, do it anywhere else but not, over Fairfield County? Or are they saying, look, there must be some other solution out there?
Well, they are. They see that there's a solution, and many of the solutions, some of which I've elaborated on here this morning. But more importantly, what they're doing is they're trying to take the system in Washington and slow it up a little bit. Congressman Shays has asked for a GAO investigation of the process to be sure that due process was followed throughout this entire study. There are many questions about that. That report is due out, by the way, at the end of June, beginning of July. And we are confident, as our organization, the Alliance, that this report will, in fact, illustrate just what we're complaining about, just what we are saying has not been done, that there are other alternatives, other issues that need to be looked at and given very serious consideration.
And it's the FAA that makes that decision ultimately?
Well, the FAA controls the airspace.
Yeah, they do.
And you know, on the positive side, I have to say, internationally, we're looked upon as one of the safest organizations in the world. So they're to be credited for that and to be credited for really dotting the I's and crossing the T's. But in this case, I think there's been some political pressure. There's been some heat put on the situation. You got to get rid of the delays. You got to speed things up. Let's take care of this. And as Lautenberg and Menendez said in New Jersey, slow up. You're not taking into consideration some serious safety issues.
Right. Is there a way to bring more planes in over the water? I guess they eased up on some of that earlier, well, but can't they bring in even more that way?
Well, you could, but the real crux of the problem is that there's not enough concrete on the ground.
Okay.
I mean, you can spread planes out in the air all over our area, out over the water, over land. Right. But if you have a finite amount of concrete on the ground, there's only so many planes that can get in and out of that facility.
Right.
And that's why we're saying with the purchase of Stewart, that adds to the amount of concrete on the ground. Take that into consideration and make some definite steps forward in moving traffic, because I know Richfield, Danbury, and a lot of communities that utilize the New York area airports would rather go to Newburgh if the level of service was there.
How about other smaller airports? Westchester now I'm thinking about, is there any room for expansion there?
Westchester has been expanding. I think they're about maxed out.
Right.
Mr. Spano originally put some limitations on that going back several years ago. But you bring up a very interesting point, which is the impact that this all will have on general aviation. Right. Of course, in the Danbury area, we have Danbury Municipal Airport, small airport. But the FAA has also now given approval to a new form of jet travel called the VLJs, the very light jets. These are the Cessnas and Pipers that will no longer have a prop on the front, but two jet engines on the tail section, and will provide nonstop travel to about Chicago is their ability. That type of travel, which is based similarly to Priceline.com, you can go online and you can do the same thing. Go to Pogo.com, see what, order your plane to pick you up at Danbury Airport. If you're going to Manassas, Virginia, picks you up at 6. You don't have to worry about parking. You don't have to worry about security. Multitude of advantages. The FAA is supporting this because they're hoping that this too will help alleviate some of the congestion in the New York metropolitan area. Great idea. But when they did the study for this redesign, they did not take into consideration the expansion of the rural airports and the impact that these new ceilings, because they'll be establishing a ceiling in an area where they've never been before.
Right.
We don't have approaches to New York over Fairfield County right now. They are taking the approach into LaGuardia, which is currently over Westchester Rockland down the Hudson Valley, and bringing it over directly over Fairfield County, coming in over the Bridgewater area, as I mentioned, and down right through the heart of Fairfield County. That has an impact and will have a lasting impact. So that ceiling that's being created by those flights coming down is going to have a definite impact on the Danbury Municipal Airport in terms of climb out, reaching the altitudes, etc., which means we'll have lower traffic and even a greater noise issue, which is one of the issues we're concerned about.
Absolutely. Mr. Marconi, what should we be looking for next now? I mean, is that report coming in?
What we're asking for is the people to take some action. We have a website called sensibleairspace.org. Log on to that, sign a petition. We need to get Congressman Shates, who has been very, very helpful on this issue, but Dodd, Lieberman, and the rest of the congressional delegation in the state of Connecticut to pay attention to this, because this is an issue, as I said, that will affect a good part of our state, well over 1 million people.
Thank you so much for your time, and excuse me, we'll be paying attention to this, of course.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it very much. Back with part 3 in just a moment.